So you're thinking about moving to New Orleans. Well, before you do that, you're probably going to watch this video because in this video, I'm going to discuss the pros and the cons of living in New Orleans so that you can better decide if it's the right fit for you. If you're new to my channel, I talk all things New Orleans as well as the surrounding suburbs, the ins, the outs, the goods, the bads, and everything in between. So if you're thinking about moving in 9 days or 90 days, feel free to call me, text me, email me, or if you just like to schedule a video call with me, all of my links are going to be in the description below. I would love to hear from you. The first pro of living in New Orleans is definitely going to be the food. So New Orleans has a variety of food options. And if you go to French, to Creole, to Cajun, seafood, po' boys, whatever you could possibly think of. And it's gonna be really hard once you try the food in New Orleans. Honestly, I found that it's really difficult going to different states and trying the food because the food is just phenomenal in New Orleans. This all the way from the season to the history of the food, you're not gonna have a hard time finding food in New Orleans. The second pro of living in New Orleans is definitely going to be the culture. Now, there's no lie in Southern hospitality here. From the locals to the tourists, to the business owners, everyone is just so friendly. Ever since I moved here about a year ago, I found that from New Orleans to any city in Louisiana specifically, everyone is so accommodating to having newer people around. Everyone's greeting you. People actually open the door for you. They say thank you. Everyone's just very, very nice. And actually, New Orleans is one of the cities with the friendliest people in the United States. So that is definitely a plus. The third pro of New Orleans is definitely going to be the things to do in the area. So moving to New Orleans, you're definitely going to find a lot of things to do, coming from the festivals to the events to the jazz bars. Everything that you could possibly think of is going to be in New Orleans, and you're not going to have a hard time finding things to do. Actually, one of my favorite things to do in New Orleans is definitely going to visit the City Park, which is a local family-friendly park in New Orleans that offers places like the Storyland, all the way to little museums in the park. Like just recently we had a French market festival with tons of food. So many people came. We have the jazz festival. We also have Mardi Gras. Mardi Gras is one of the things that locals love attending, and it's an all week, almost an all month kind of thing. The fourth pro of living in New Orleans is going to be the history. New Orleans is filled with history from the time it was founded all the way up to now, and something that you're gonna find when living in New Orleans is going to be that a lot of the buildings and the feel of New Orleans is still from how it was years ago. So New Orleans hasn't really changed in terms of how it feels and the history that it has. What makes New Orleans so unique is the buildings, the restaurants that have been there since the 1800s. One of the oldest buildings in New Orleans is known as the Old Ursuline Convent, and it's been standing there since 1750. So if you are a history junkie, you're probably going to appreciate all the history that New Orleans has to offer. Now, New Orleans, actually, one of the things that I did, the locals will laugh, but one of the things that I did before moving down was I attended a ghost tour, and I feel like I learned so much through that tour that, I basically know a bit of the history and things of that sort. So the fifth pro of living in New Orleans is the architecture. So New Orleans has a variety of style of homes, anywhere from your French colonial to the Spanish colonial to your cottage houses to your shotgun houses, as well as the $1 million neighborhoods that have been standing there for ages. New Orleans architecture is sporadic but amazing at the same time. When it comes to architecture, New Orleans is going to have a mixture of things, and that's the reason why people love New Orleans, is because of the uniqueness that the city has to offer. If you're someone that loves these vibrant houses and these older style houses, then New Orleans definitely is going to have all of that in store for you. All right, now it's time to hop into the cons of living in New Orleans. The first con is going to be the infrastructure. Now, New Orleans is known for having very old infrastructure. A lot of the things that were built, such as the sewage system and the pumping system, they were built 100 years ago. We have potholes that can literally fit a human body in it. Like, that's one thing that, you know, the locals laugh about, but it's something that is a big issue here because it could ruin your car. We have very old draining systems to where, you know, if it does rain, you're gonna see a lot of that water just sitting on your property. That leads me into my second con, which is the flooding. Now, New Orleans is a city below sea level. So when it floods or when it rains, the water, like I said, sits on the property, and it could sit on the property for weeks due to the pumping system being so outdated. Your house could get flooded, you know, that just comes with a lot of cost that you're definitely gonna wanna think about before moving. All right, the third con of living in New Orleans is going to be the humidity. Now, it gets scorching hot in Louisiana in general. There's something about the heat. I mean, it's just muggy, kind of sticky. Like, you can walk around and go like this with your hands and you already feel like there's moisture in the air. So, you know, New Orleans kind of has the same humidity as Florida, except we unfortunately do not have the beaches to accommodate it. So if you're someone who is moving from a city that their humidity level doesn't really bother you, then in between the summers, see how it feels, you know, but it's definitely a con. The fourth con, in my opinion, is going to be the limited yard space that a lot of the homes in New Orleans have to offer. So if you're someone who enjoys sitting on the patio or sitting outside and enjoying outdoor activities, you're probably not going to find a lot of the houses in New Orleans providing that. A lot of the houses in New Orleans are kind of just like stacked on top of each other, and it's limited yard space. The fifth and final con of living in New Orleans is going to be the education system. New Orleans has a mixture of private schools, charter schools, and public schools, and a lot of the residents actually opt into putting their children in private schools. According to niche.com, the public schools were rated a B-. Now, if education is something that's really important to you, then I would definitely look into websites such as niche.com, great schools, which is something that I actually looked into when moving to Louisiana. And I would also join the Facebook mom groups. You know, I feel like that's where a lot of the reviews are going to come from when it comes to looking at the education system. A lot of people actually move to the suburbs of New Orleans specifically because of the education system that the suburbs have. Now, if you found this video valuable and you're still wanting to know about what it's like to live, eat, sleep in New Orleans, my name is Emily Taveras. Feel free to call me, text me, email me. All of my links are in the description below. I would love to hear from you, and make sure that you subscribe so that you can learn all about what living in New Orleans has to offer.